we're going to be among the other nations, right? So who now today is scattered amongst every nation under the sun, right? You got the diaspora, right? You have the so-called Hispanics that got taken into certain nations. I got the so-called black man when the transatlantic slave trade had came to pass. Right? We're the people that are scattered because what land do we have to go back to? Right? We don't have one. Right? But yet we have black men in Australia. We have black men over in Europe. We have black men over in the Americas, North America, South America. The same with the Hispanics, the Taino Indians. Right? They got taken, and I want to say the 1400s over to Europe. Right? The blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are the children of Israel that the Lord refers to.
That's right.
We are the witnesses of Jehovah. Right. But his name's not actually Jehovah because there was no Jehovah or F in the original paper, right? In the original Hebrew. So his true name would actually be Yahweh. Right.
Yeah. So that's an interesting point that you made with the name, because obviously with Hebrew, like you said, there was no bull. I believe the tetragrammaton had a Y. So no one knows maybe the exact pronunciation of God's name, but he still wants us, even if we don't know the correct pronunciation from how it was pronounced back in ancient Israel, he still wants us to use his name. Wouldn't you agree?
No, I would definitely agree. Use it, but we have to use it properly. However,
oh yeah, absolutely. We don't want to, of course, misuse it.
How it actually goes though is that in Hebrew, the older you go back, the more simple a language gets. Like the vowels and stuff that we have in modern day, these are vowels that we had back then. So even with the Paleo Hebrew, right, it goes back to an old Canaanite language, something called the Pro-Sinaitic text, which is actually like when they say that some of these languages are dead languages, they're not saying that they're indecipherable. What they're saying is that they're no longer speaking amongst a mass group of people. So when it comes to that Pro-Sinaitic text or the Paleo Hebrew, when you take the tetragrammaton, they will call the tetragrammaton, right? Every consonant would just say its name. Like the Y sound would just say Yah. The W sound would just say Wah. The H sound would just say Ha. So when you put the tetragrammaton together and you read it in the Hebrew from right to left, it will read Yahweh instead of Jehovah. Right? So that's how we understand that is the true name of the Most High God.
That's right.
Right. But
and Jehovah is just more of a
modern day term. Yeah. And we agree with that.
Just like you have like my name Joseph, for example. My name is Joseph. So in Spanish it would be Jose. Yeah. But it's, you know, if you refer to Jose, Joseph, still the same name, just different pronunciation.
Yeah, I believe Joseph. I believe that Joseph in the Paleo Hebrew was Yahweh. I could be wrong, but I believe that it is Yahweh.
Okay. Well, I don't know Hebrew,
no,
so
yeah,
I'll take your word for it.
But however, there's a more important message that we came out to teach. Give me John chapter 1 and start at verse 47. Give me Deuteronomy 28 and verse 68. Right? What we're here to tell you is that you will be an Israelite according to the Bible. Right? John 1 and 47. Deuteronomy 28 68.
John chapter 1 and verse 47.
Bring it out.
Yahushua, Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him and said unto him,
what did he say?
Behold, an Israelite indeed.
Read it again.
Behold, an Israelite indeed.
Where's the brother Joseph?
Behold, an Israelite indeed.
Like the brother Joseph, you would actually be an Israelite according to the Bible.
That's right.
And here's how we know. When you go to Deuteronomy 28th chapter, right, it talks about the different curses that were going to befall our people, right, if we didn't obey the commandments of the Most High God. Matter of fact, let's read that real quick. Read verse 15.
It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 15.
Bring it out.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
He says that all of these curses or these situations were going to come and plague your people. Now, when you look at modern day, the blacks, Hispanics, and Native American are the most plagued people throughout anybody upon the face of the earth. And this is how we know, right? Read on.
Verse 16. Cursed shalt thou be in the city.
It says that what?
Cursed shalt thou be in the city.
Right? How do our people live, though, regardless of what city you go to? We living pretty bad, right? Wouldn't you say, Brother Joseph?
I would say so. Right. A lot of minority groups right here in the city are struggling economically.
True.
Don't have have the resources, maybe in like more fluid lands. So
That's a fact. But even when we deal with the minorities on a more specific level, right, it's just certain minorities. Because the Asiatic community, like they get a lot of benefits. Their finances are pretty well flourishing. You deal with the Arabic community, they're doing pretty well. The East Indian community, everybody's doing well outside of the people whose blood was shed to build this land. Right? So it says that you were going to be cursed in the city, moreover, what we doing?
And cursed shalt thou be in the field.
Right, it says even before that, Kunta Kinte was going to be getting back again in the field. Like kind of picking cotton. Right, that's why some of our nails don't even go the same. Right, because they pick them all off without them. Right, but give me verse 54. Right, verse 68. Go to verse 68.
Verse 68.
Uh-huh.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
Nah, brother, you a very well-versed brother, I can tell. Right, what happened to the children of Israel in Egypt?
well, eventually they got released from
did.
bondage. And of course, with the plagues, they eventually were basically driven out. And then, of course, we know the country.
Yeah. But chiefly, when the Bible talks about Egypt, it's referring to bondage and some type of slavery. Or you can read that, and I want to say Exodus chapter 1 and verse 12 on down. Right, but it says that the Lord was going to bring them back into the spiritual land of Egypt. Now this land of Egypt that it's talking about, we know it's spiritual. Give me real fast Revelation chapter 11 and verse 8, somebody. Revelations 11 and 8. All right, once you got it, you can read it.
It was a Revelation chapter 11 and verse 8.
Look it up.
And their dead bodies
It says the dead bodies of the Israelites shall do what?
shall lie in the street of the great city.
Right, in the street of the great city, think like Trayvon Martin, the brother Marcus Brown, you got the brother, who they kneeled on his neck? George Floyd. Right, their dead bodies laying in the street of this great city. This great city is talking about a country. Right, read on.
Which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt.
Right, it says spiritually this place is called Sodom and Egypt because Sodom was known for the mass amount of sexual immorality.
Teach them,
Just like you got it in Wisconsin, not just Wisconsin, but in the United States of America. Right, in Egypt because it's known for slavery. That's referring to the transatlantic slave trade, the lynching of the Mexicans, like Cortez and his conquest, even Columbus coming over and his pillage. Right, so when we read about this Exodus or this Egypt in the verse Deuteronomy 28th chapter, right, Deuteronomy 28 and verse 68, right, this is talking about the land of America. So as we read it again, I'm going to place this word Egypt with America. Right, read that.
Deuteronomy 28 and verse 68.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Lord shall bring thee into America again with ships.
With what?
With ships.
Read it again.
With ships.
Brother, how do our people come over to the Americas? With ships, right? And not just any type of ship, right? The great transatlantic cruise ship. That was a real nice boat, right? Read on.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
Right, it says that we're never gonna see our homeland again. We're still forced to be black on Brady Street. Are we still forced to be black on Center Street? The Hispanics are forced to be on the south side when they at one point in time owned all of the Americas. Right, read on.
And there ye shall be sold unto your
It
enemies.
says once you get off those ships, you're gonna be sold to the people that hate you. Right, and call those people their enemies. Now, we know who we got sold to. Right, we ain't gotta bring it up. Right, it says that we were gonna be sold directly after we got off those ships. Right, for what? Read on.
For bond
Right,
men
for slave men. Read on.
and bond women.
And slave women. Read on.
And no man shall buy you.
That word "buy" just means redeem, because our people are still living in slavery. When you look at it, right, the slavery might look a little different, but it functions the same. Right, you slave day in and day out, night and day. Right, only to be able to have something to eat and somewhere to sleep. Right, and then what happens if the boy get out of line? Are they gonna kind of put the whip on your back like they did to Trayvon Martin, like they did to George Floyd, like Zimmerman did to our people? Like you said, you got a scripture.
It's the book of Baruch, chapter 4 and verse 6. Ye were sold to the nations, not for your destruction.
Not for what?
Not for your
Like the
destruction.
Most High didn't sell us into these nations as a destruction. Like the reason I would call him our heavenly Father because he works just like any other father. Now, when I was young, right, I didn't have my father, but my mom's. Let me do Deuteronomy 28 and 54. My mom's put belt to back, right? So the Lord says that he didn't sell us into these other nations for our destruction, but for what? Read on.
But because ye moved your God unto wrath.
Right.
Ye were delivered unto your enemies.
Right. It says that he delivered us unto our enemies because of the crimes that we committed against them. I was talking about the sin. Like, most people don't know. Most people don't know eating pork is a sin. Right? Shrimp is a sin. Right? The Sabbath day, which would be Saturday, right, which I believe that the Sabbath day is Saturday, right? Or Sunday.
Yeah, so it would fall on a Saturday. Now, I see the fringes. Black Hebrew Israelites.
We don't refer to ourselves as black Israelites because, you know, black is just the color. And that would be an insult to the Hispanics and Native Americans. Right. But we do believe that we are the children of Israel, yes. Right. Right. Would you agree with our stance?
That you are descendants of the ancient Israelites?
Yeah, literal descendants of the Hebrew people.
That one's debatable, and the reason why I say it's debatable is when Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 CE, when the Romans came and took over the city, a lot of those birth records, a lot of those information got destroyed. So for any one group of people to say my direct lineage is from those people would be debatable or hard to prove. But there's many groups of people obviously that that would claim or assert that, oh, I originally was a Jew or originally came from that lineage. But just because the records are gone,
Yeah, you're saying there's no paper trail, so
correct,
to speak?
correct. That's basically what I'm saying.
And definitely because of that, and I really wish that we had brought our books out here. It's a book called The Black Image in a White Mind, in which when you read on page 74, what's going on, Cecilia? When you read on page 74, right, the man himself said that we were not, based off of our skull types and structures, we were not the same as the Egyptians. However, we served the same servile servitude over in ancient Egypt. Now, when you deal with 70 AD, there's a book that you could buy called From Babylon to Timbuktu. With the siege on Jerusalem, where do you think that all of the Israelites fled into?
Well, I'd have to brush up on history, but what I do know is that they were scattered in different areas. Some went to Europe, some went to other parts of the Roman Empire. Where exactly, I can't say, but they were scattered.
Yeah.
And to this day, that group, those original Jews, were scattered, and then obviously there's probably been some intermarriages. So that's what I'm going to say on that.
No, you're good, brother. Let's go to Matthew, the 24th chapter. Right, Matthew chapter 24. Right, Matthew chapter 24. We're going to start at verse 15.
It's the book of Matthew, chapter 24.
Give me Daniel 9 and start at verse 26.
Chapter 24 and verse 15.
Get out.
When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet.
Right, so he's talking about what was going to happen to the siege on Jerusalem. This is Christ. Now he's talking about Daniel the 9th chapter with the 70 weeks. Right, read Daniel 9 and start at verse 26.
Daniel 9 and verse 26.
Get up.
And after 62 weeks,
right,
shall Messiah be cut off.
Right, so it's talking about after Messiah being cut off, it's talking about Christ. Right, we doing?
But not for himself, and the people of the prince that shall come destroy the city.
Right, this is talking about Titus of Vespasian coming to destroy Jerusalem. Right, we doing?
And sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined.
Right, it says the end thereof shall be with a flood. Like that flood is referring to Isaiah chapter, I want to say 17 and 15, where it says like people rushing is like the rushing of mighty waters. You can also go to Revelation chapter 17 and verse 15. Right, where it refers to people as waters. Which is in good. What he said? No, I'm gonna get to that. Right, you can hold that. Right, and it says, so when he says in Matthew the 24th chapter, once you see the abomination of desolation, right, spoken of by Daniel, right, read on.
15 and 24 and 15.
Whoso readeth, let him understand.
Right, read on.
Then let him which be in Judea flee into the mountains.
It says, let the men that be in Judea flee into the mountains. Now, which mountains are they talking about?
I don't know the Pacific mountains, but obviously mountains that would be in that surrounding area where they were told to flee. And the Christians in that city, well, everyone, but particularly the Christians, were encouraged to flee. And if they heeded Jesus' warning to flee, they would have escaped that slaughter that happened in the city. And I'm assuming most people heeded it. Sadly, a lot of the people did not heed that warning, and people were killed. And it kind of reminds me of kind of like today, like how there's a warning given today about what's going to happen to this system of things. But most people fail to heed the warning. I'm sure you would agree. And so, as Jehovah's Witnesses, we don't claim to know everything, but the Bible does give us an indicator of where we are in the stream of time and what we need to do so that we can be on the right side of the issue of universal sovereignty, or God's right to rule. And so we're in a very interesting time today where we're seeing things changing on a constant level. And a lot of the things that we see taking place today was already foretold thousands of years ago. So it's just interesting.
And you agree, like the slavery on ships. However, I still kind of wanted to finish the point when he told them to flee into the mountains, right? Because which mountains did they come through when they went from Egypt into Judea?
I don't know the exact
Mount Sinai and all of those mountains. So when he told them to flee into the mountains, he was telling them to take the same exact route that y'all used to come into Israel. So if we went from Egypt into Israel, that means that when we fled, we went from Israel into where? Into Egypt, into the different parts of Africa, right? Because we look just like those other people. That's why when he was born, right, Joseph took him where? He took him to Egypt. When Joseph was on the run, he went to Egypt, right? So Christ told us to go and hide amongst the Africans. Ethnically, we're not the same as the Africans, right? Even Africans will tell you that, especially if you talk to the ones on the western coast, right? So when he told us to flee into Africa, it would be harder, it would be easier for us to escape Roman persecution because we look like the Africans that we're hiding amongst. And through that diaspora, that's how we ended up in the different parts of Africa. That's why when you look at, now I wish I had my shirt on, when you look at old African maps, it talks about places in Africa called the land of Judah, because those are where the Jews were residing at. Give me Ezra chapter 2 and start at verse 59.
So do you guys believe that all black people descended from the nation of Israel, or do you believe that there's something?
You say all black people.
Like sub-Saharan Africa.
So the sub-Saharan, like when it comes to the sub-Saharan, that kind of is going to bring us to this scripture as well. When it comes to the sub-Saharan, you had the sub-Saharan slave trade and all of that. When that's actually where the birth of Islam comes from, right? And Muhammad, when he was dwelling amongst the Jews, he learned a lot of. He really should have brought Babylon and Timbuktu out, right? But he was living amongst the Jews and he copied after their ways. That's how when you see them pray, they pray to the east as well. They have a fast called Ramadan. A lot of the things that they believe in is directly after what we believed in. However, with the trans-Saharan slave trade, like you said, we had lost a lot more of our records and we lost our reconciliation. Like when you read that Ezra, 2:59.
This is Ezra chapter 2 and verse 59.
Bring it out.
And these were they which went up from Malah, Hasar, Cherub, Adon, and Immer, but they could not show their father's house and their seed whether they were of Israel.
Right, so when it comes to your bloodline, it's always determined by the father. But like you said, right, that paper trail to that extent has gotten destroyed. We still have a paper trail as far as history, and we can determine like the mass amount. Like when we say the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we're not saying only and all of the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are Israelites, because we got, of course, some scattered abroad. However, when it comes to the Americas, the majority of the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are Israelites because of what you said. You got intermarrying, interbreeding, right? When you have a father that's of another nation, you would now be a part of that other nation. So the Israelites in modern day America would be the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans for the most part that haven't intermarried, at least when it comes to their father's house. Now, we don't have that paper trail just how you said, so we kind of go off the spirit now. Read that real quick in Romans 8:16.
It's the book of Romans, chapter 8 and verse 16.
Bring it out.
The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of God.
That's why a lot of times when people come up, like the first thing we ask is about your nationality. Well, okay, you know, what's your nationality? Some people be straight out, like there was a cat up here earlier, he's a Sicilian, right? He knows he's not an Israelite. When most people come up, oh, I'm black, I'm Hispanic, I'm an indigenous American, I'm Cherokee, we kind of deal with it off of that basis, right? And we bring out the scriptures to see if the Spirit of the Most High bears witness with their spirit that they're an Israelite or not. So that's kind of how we deal with it. I don't know if that answered your question. I know most
Sort of, but it's sort of, but you know, it was a nice conversation with you all. Very interesting take. And of course, I'm sure we can all agree on the Bible. That the Bible is that. I think that's a good basis that we could all agree on.
Definitely is. But we just need you to know, brother, that you're an Israelite. Right? You got to keep the numbers of that. Right? Regardless of the differences that we might doctrine-wise or biblically, right? Your nationality, according to history, archaeology, and prophecy, would be that of an Israelite.
Well, I'll personally say I'm not ethnically a Hebrew, nor do I claim to have any heritage with it. But I do believe in the scriptures that in God's eyes, whether it's Jew or Greek, they're all one in God's eyes, and that He's not partial. And that's a beautiful thing that I know our Heavenly Father is not partial. Especially those who have the privilege to go in heaven with Him. There's no distinction between Jew, Greek, or their nationality. So this shows how God views all of us, no matter what our origin or ancestry is. Because both my parents are Nigerian. So it's a beautiful thing to know that no matter what our heritage is, God sees us all as His children.
Now, that's actually not a biblical thing. Right? You're referring to Galatians chapter 3 real fast, brother. Put Galatians 3 and start at verse 28. Right? That's when it says neither Jew nor Greek. When you go into the Greek for that word, it means Hellen. It's talking about a Hellenized Jew. Right?
Galatians 3 and 28.
Second night,
Out.
66.
There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female. For ye are all one in Christ Jesus.
Right, so this is
That's the scripture I was referring to.
This is
Genesis
referring to
3:28.
that's referring to when, because all of the people that were in Galatia, right, they were under Roman oppression. Now, some of those people had denounced their nationality, had denounced their Israelite way of living, so they had gotten cut off. And because they had gotten cut off, they were no longer calling themselves Israelites, but they were calling themselves Greek. Real fast, 2 Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 6.
Well, some of those ones were actually
By nationality?
in nationality. So some of, like, especially after the time where Jesus was, held under the stake, and the Christian congregation came up, they included both Jews, those who were naturally Jews, and it also included the Gentiles, those who weren't Jewish by ancestry, and some of them maybe weren't Jewish. So that's part of all those different groups of individuals that were included in that Christian congregation in the first century.
No, definitely. And we kind of agree, but to an extent, right? When it talks real fast, give me Acts 11 and start at verse 26. When it refers to the Christian congregation, it gives a very descriptive analysis on who they are and what they were called back at that point.
Acts 11, chapter 11, verse 26.
No.
And when he had found him, he brought him unto Antioch.
Unto where?
Unto
Antioch.
So it's a church in Antioch, right? Read on.
And it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the church and taught much people.
Read on.
And the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch.
Right, so it says that the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch. Now, when you go to Acts, the 13th chapter, it gives a more in-depth understanding on who those Christians were. Right, read that. Acts 13:1.
Acts chapter 13 and verse number 1.
Bring it out.
Now there were in the church that was in Antioch
Right, the same exact church, right? Read on.
certain prophets and teachers as Barnabas and Simeon that were called nigger.
That was called what?
That was
called
called
nigger.
So that's how we understand who this church was actually referring to when it talks about the Christians, right? They were called Christians and niggers in Antioch.
Well, that term wasn't even in use in the scriptures. That's
Go to the blue letter.
so the name those were it was when it was mentioning in the context of prophets and teachers, it's listing the names. So Barnabas, Simeon, who was called Niger. So it wasn't referring to that term.
No, here's the thing.
Those are referring. Those are.
Oh, so So that term Niger wasn't actually a state until I want to say the late 1800s. So that Greek word for Niger was actually nigger. We're gonna show you that real fast in the blue letter, in the actual Greek. You got that? All right, play that real fast. That's the word for the nigger. That's something that most of our people don't know. But we were taught through American teachers that word means Niger. Because when you look at that word as Niger, well then you differentiate it from what you're being called today. That's why when you read in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, I want to say verse 11 on down, it says there is no new thing under the sun. So, emphatically, brother, the Christians of that time, right, they were actually the so-called blacks that we would know as modern today. Like that's why in the siege on Jerusalem, they fled into Africa, and you got into the western coast of Africa. And this even shows you more that the so-called Jewish man would not be the Jew. Because after they built this, they funded all of the transatlantic slave trade, and after they did that, they robbed us of all of our jewelry, and they named themselves after them. That's why you got the Rubensteins and the Goldsteins and the Silversteins, right? Because they were being very proud when they took our thing. Right, but the Israelites, brother, even though you don't believe, real fast, give me Romans chapter 3 and verse 3. Right? Even though you don't believe. The
last one that I have to get back to that's what's waiting for me.
All right.
Romans 3 and verse 3.
No.
For what if some did not believe?
Right, just because the brother Joseph doesn't believe that he's an Israelite, right, read on.
Shall their unbelief make the faith of God without effect?
Right, that doesn't change the actual. Right, because the Most High said that these plagues were going to be on my people until the very end of time.
Right.
Right in the 28th chapter. Right, you brother, you will be a brother that's going through oppression in America, just like the Israelites prophesied. Right, and that's not even if we get into the history and the logistics of it. Right, so there's so much proof showing that you will be an Israelite of the Bible, even though you don't know that you're an Israelite, brother. Right, so you, just like ourselves, will be an Israelite by ethnicity. Now, whether the other nations can be saved or not, that's a different conversation. However, the main key that we want to harp on is that you're an Israelite, you have to keep the commandments.
That's right.
Well, we try to keep our best to keep the commandments of God. Obviously, we're not commanded to uphold to the 10 commandments or the old law, but there's the principles of it. There's still laws within there that we still apply, like don't steal, don't kill, don't covet. So there's those aspects of that old law still apply to us, but of course we're not tied to the Mosaic law with animal sacrifices, because when Jesus came down and died for us, his death did away with a lot of that. So that's something to think about too. But it was nice talking with you.
1 second, you did say something. We're going to let you go after that. But Christ's death did not do away with the law. Now, he did away with sacrifices for sins, yes. Because he's the withstanding sacrifice. However, the law of the Most High has never been done away with. Right? Read that in Romans 6 and 22.
It's the book of Romans, chapter 6 and verse 22.
Now, Romans was written after the death of Christ. What did Paul say? Let me ask you that.
But now being made free from sin and become servants to God.
That's Romans 6 and 22. 7 and 22, so
Book of Romans, chapter 7 and verse 22. For I delight in the law of God.
What did the Lord say?
For I delight in the law of God.
This is Paul saying that he delights in the law of God, right? Read on.
After the inward man.
Right, because he's saying that the law is now deep down up inside of him. Right, the law of the Most High has never been done away with. Right, real fast.
Right. That part. I mean, the law in itself hasn't been done away
with. So we still have to hold to all of the commandments. just the commandments that pertain, like commandments that we can't keep, like Passover, you're supposed to keep it in Israel, we can't keep it.
Right.
Right, so you're not going to be
So
held
that's what I'm
accountable for
referring
that.
to. So
But-
that's probably should have clarified. That's those
Okay.
are those things I'm referring to.
So, but when it
Those
comes to the
statutes.
10 Commandments and every commandment listed in the Bible, we still have to adhere to the best of our ability to every
Oh,
single
yeah.
one.
Absolutely.
So whether it's pork, shrimp, crab, and lobster, right, we still have to adhere to all of them, right? But there are some things, like how you said, we can't do.
It's gonna die.
However, the law of sacrifice, the animal sacrifice,